what scared me about this, and I don't know if it's fear, but what really concerned me about this is the sheer numbers. You have 300,000 people 2 days after October 7th walking through the streets of London protesting Israel. The Jewish community of the UK is less than 250,000 people. So the numbers that were out there represented more than the entire UK Jewish community.
Welcome to What Came After. I'm your host, Manya Marcus. On What Came After, we'll take a look at the many ways people's lives have changed since the brutal massacre in Israel on October 7th, 2023. We'll be speaking to people around the world to learn how this profound moment in Jewish and global history continues to shift, shape, and change them. To learn more, please visit us at whatcameafter.com. I always start by saying the date because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. So it is February 17th, 2026, and I am seated here with my friend Samantha Robinson. Thank you so much for letting me take some of your time today. You're a busy woman.
I mean, this is what I live for. I love it when I have visitors from around the world and we just get to chat and catch up, and it is so amazing.
Tell us where we are and what it is that you do here.
So we are right now sitting in my little office, which is part of a much, much bigger historic building, which is the National Institutions Buildings of Israel. They're based very much in the center of Jerusalem, King George Street, and they represent all of the major historical Zionist organizations founded in 1897 by Theodor Herzl. Some
of us have heard of it.
The World Zionist Organization, which from then gave birth to three other massive organizations, one being Keren HaYesod, responsible for fundraising for the Jewish Agency and for a lot of activities in Israel from all around the world. Outside of the United States, there's Kakal, JNF. They're two different entities, but one of those very major institutions that sits here, responsible historically for purchasing and establishing the land and a lot of the infrastructure of the state, planting trees and so on. And the Jewish Agency, which is the organization that I am very, very privileged to work for the past 16 years, in fact. One of those things that happened as part of the dream of when I made Aliyah 16 years ago, and I came to Israel, I came to learn Hebrew in an ulpan that was run by the Jewish Agency. And I just fell in love with the organization, with everything it did. At the time, I thought, okay, like most people, the Jewish Agency is Aliyah. What I know today, and what I try to share the message with everyone else, is that there are so many different operations. Aliyah, of course, is the historically mandated role of the Jewish Agency. Then there's a whole element of strengthening Israeli society, looking at all of the different vulnerable populations and the different demographics within Israel, and really understanding what their challenges are and their needs are and how we can take care of them. That involves Druze communities, Bedouin communities, Israeli Arabs, ultra-Orthodox, secular, all of the different demographics, and really focusing on the most vulnerable. We have assisted living housing situations for elderly and Holocaust survivors. We have youth villages. We have programs for youth at risk, pre-army academies for those from the social and geographic peripheries. That's within Israel. And then where I come in is part of our global activities, which really focuses on connecting global Jewish communities all around the world with each other and with Israel. We have shlichim, who are Israeli emissaries who go all over the world, and they're focused on Jewish education and informal education. We have immersive Israel projects like Masa, like Birthright we're connected with, and Onward and so on, bringing young Jews to Israel for these immersive experiences. We have a lot of different initiatives within communities. Where I come in is focusing on the resilience piece, training leadership from Jewish communities all around the world on how to deal with emergencies and build resilience within their communities. This is a remarkable project, I have to say, called JReady, which was established at the time when Isaac Herzog was the chairman of the Jewish Agency before he became the 11th president of Israel. So 5 years ago, this whole project started in the midst of COVID, in the midst of this global pandemic.
That is when we met. I was doing some COVID advocacy stuff in my community in Chicago, and suddenly I was on a Zoom with this lovely woman in Israel, and I really did not know what the heck was going on. And you explained that you guys were establishing, was it in response to COVID?
It was in response to COVID. And actually, I still use that anecdote of our original meetings when I talk about JReady and how it started, because there was something so special. I'm pretty sure this was part of our initial conversation where there were challenges with ultra-Orthodox communities in North America in how to respond to the pandemic and social distancing and quarantining. And so a big part of what JReady does is bring the experts, mostly from Israel, but also for expertise from all around the world, and share the protocols and best practices with the Jewish communities everywhere else. So we enlisted the support of mayors from different Haredi communities, where there was a large Haredi population, ultra-Orthodox population, to understand how they managed to deal with the COVID situation and then bring these best practices to the communities around the world.
It was this incredible, robust network that could just be deployed, it felt like, at any moment. And I think at the time, I really couldn't imagine a bigger emergency than a global pandemic. And then October 7th happened. And I think our imagination for what an emergency can look like really broadened.
Yeah, that's definitely one way of putting it.
Before I ask you where you were on October 7th, I want to say that you talked about how this is an umbrella location for many Zionist organizations. I saw at the front of the building, it says the World Zionist Executive. And I took this picture because I thought, oh, why do they have that on the walls? I mean, don't they know Zionism is dangerous? It's never been a dirty word for me, but a dangerous one now.
It's all about how it's associated. But if we look back at the original executive of the Zionist movement, it's so different from the connotations it has today. We look at these great leaders like Chaim Weizmann, who was the first president of Israel. One of my favorite anecdotes about Chaim Weizmann specifically, they were discussing at all these meetings at the Zionist congresses about where they were going to establish this new state of Israel. And back at the time when finally we'd had the agreement of the UN and the partition plan was announced, and even before that point where the British Mandate government said, okay, we're going to establish a Jewish agency to take care of the social and economic affairs of the Jewish people. And then all these different heads of states from all around the world came to convene and discuss the Jewish issue, right? Chaim Weizmann is sitting in these meetings and he's so insistent on which stretch of land is going to be the homeland of the Jewish people and which is going to be the state where the state is founded. And, so Chaim Weizmann would be very insistent on this is the area, not Uganda, nowhere else. And so they'd say to him, why are you so insistent on this piece of land? There's nothing here. It's a barren wasteland. And Chaim would say to them, it's like me asking you why you travel 50 miles every Sunday to go visit your elderly mother when there are so many elderly women in your street.
I love that story.
He was a brilliant man. And when we think of Zionism, it's about loving a people and loving a place that is our ancestral historic homeland. It's not to say that no one else is welcome here, but this is something that we feel deep inside of us. And every day when we're walking around the streets of Jerusalem and walking around Tel Aviv even, which is a much more modern city, we just feel that connection. What we were talking about before is that when you travel around the world and when you see communities, you can feel so connected as a Jew. But when you come to Israel, even if you've never been here before, there's something that makes you feel home.
So this is something that I want to talk about, your connection with the diaspora. You're one of these rare people, I think, where I felt in our initial communications after October 7th, they might have been 6 months, even a year later. It took a while, right? But I could feel in our initial communication that you had serious compassion and interest in the experience of the diaspora Jew, and that you weren't fully self-focused, which is really remarkable. You are very ingrained in the goings-on of these communities. And I think that you understood very quickly that when it hits here, hits there. It's not far behind. And I felt like I could say things to you. It's been hard here and not have you say to me, well, you think it's hard. My husband's going to go on for 300 days.
I feel like everyone here does the opposite. Anyone that I spoke to post-October 7th, there's a term for it, but it's about how your issues are not anything compared to someone else's issues. You could have a husband who's serving a reserve duty for over 300 days, and you could have young kids at home, and but there's always someone that you look at and that you're like, wow, their challenges, I could not handle those challenges. I can handle my challenges, but what they've got going on is so much greater. And I think every single person that struggles with something, it's not about us making comparisons, because there's always going to be someone that seems way worse off than what we have. But it's about seeing how we can channel that energy and channel the challenges that we have and the strengths we have to make a difference. And something that I used to say when I brought delegations to meet him, Rav Doron Peretz, whose son Daniel was taken hostage on the 7th of October. They didn't know if he was alive or not. And it turned out he had been killed very early on. And spoke to a lot of groups when they came to visit. And one of the things that really stuck with me that he would say is, I have no space for worry, because the vast majority of the time, the things that I'm spending time worrying about are not going to happen. And if they do happen, there's probably nothing I could have done to prevent it. So he channeled his worry into action and just went out and did. And I think so many of us can be brought down by what's going on in the world around us and just feel so devastated and so paralyzed by everything going on. But the minute we step back and we look at what our personal strengths are and what we can contribute, and even if it's a tiny thing, giving a meal to a family in need or babysitting for a family struggling.
By the way, that's a huge thing, to give childcare.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Everything.
It might be minute to us, but it makes such an impact to the person who's receiving. And it has an impact also in that it gives others the desire to give as well. And the more that we have these cycles going on, it has this ripple effect. And then we can really make a huge impact and a big difference in the world.
Okay, so tell us what it was like at home on October 7th and how it has reverberated in your home life.
Gosh, I feel like everyone has their October 7th story. For me, it was sitting on the balcony, Simchat Torah, Shabbat morning, drinking coffee, and suddenly my eldest son, Akiva, 15-year-old now, he wasn't bar mitzvah yet at that time. He looks into the sky. The sky was so beautifully blue, unbroken by any clouds. And he looks into the sky and he's like, what's that zigzaggy white thing in the sky? And it looked like this cloud. And we're like, where's this coming from? And then we heard the boom, and then we heard sirens. And it was one after the other. And I was in Jerusalem. This wasn't in the area of the Gaza envelope. It wasn't close by to Gaza. It was in Jerusalem. And we started to understand, and we keep Shabbat. We're a religious family. We didn't have access to television and phones. We just started hearing the sirens. And everyone's like, what is going on? And then you see more zigzags in the sky, and you see the rockets and the interceptions over our heads. And so we all went, obviously, into the shelter. We're very fortunate we have one within our home. And when the sirens slowed down for a bit, we managed to go out the house, and we wanted to be with our community. Our synagogue is just down the road from us, a couple of minutes walk. And we made it to the synagogue to just try and get some glimpse of what's going on. My husband, who is a reservist, when he's not in high tech doing his software engineering, he actually turned his phone on and saw all these messages from his commander updating on what they knew, which was really nothing. And then there's this picture that popped up on his phone. And this I will never, ever forget. And this picture that popped up was of a wonderful man named Ophir Liebstein, who was the mayor of Shara Negev. In the past, in my role at the Jewish Agency, I worked very extensively with the kibbutzim in the South. And Ophir and I had a number of projects that we were working on together. So for me, Ophir was always the person that would be, the spokesperson. He would update everyone what was going on whenever there were rockets, whenever there were heightened tensions in the region. So Daniel, my husband, showed me this picture. I look at it and I'm like, oh, Ophir is giving us an update on what's going on. And then I read the headline, and Ophir was one of the first to be killed on October 7th in the kibbutzim. He had gone out in Kfar Aza and hand-to-hand combat with the terrorists, and unfortunately lost his life there and then. Ophir was the most remarkable leader. And for me, that was the epitome of his leadership. He was not one to sit behind a closed door, sit behind a desk and shout out orders. He was the first one there on the front lines. That was like the initial October 7th for me. Now, the night before Simchat Torah evening, we had loads of people around our Shabbat table. We're often hosting New Olim, lone soldiers.
For those who don't know, that means new immigrants.
New immigrants to Israel, people that don't necessarily have another place to go. A very vibrant Friday night like usual. One of the guys that came over was actually a young British guy who had made Aliyah a few years back. And we connected through friends and we became really friendly. On October 7th, he shows up at my door, full army gear, and says, I've been called into the army. And I automatically just mother instincts go in, and I piled him up with all of our granola bars and any kind of leftover food. I was like, take it all, take it all, take it all. This was sometime around probably 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. And then he heads off and I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to see this guy again. He sort of became like a Ben Byatt in our house, he was one of our own children, even though he's, in his late 20s. And it was just like, what's going on? So many things were happening simultaneously. And then about 2:00 in the afternoon, my husband Daniel gets called up. And the thing that I remember most is him putting on his uniform, getting all his gear ready, and then me turning to him and saying, I have no granola bars left. I've got nothing left to give you.
You should have rationed those.
And then he left and he went out, and we did not know when we were going to see him again. We were out of contact for a while. It was so unclear. Everything was chaotic. We thought there were terrorists running through the streets for those first couple of weeks. No one knew what was going on. And just half the neighborhood seemed to disappear because there was all men in the age of serving in reserve duty, a lot of young guys in our neighborhood. And suddenly all these families are left without a major part of them.
Can I slow this memory down for a second and just ask, first of all, what your kids were thinking, how old they were, what they said when Daniel left, and also if you had any instinct to say, don't go?
We didn't really think much. We weren't in a place where it was all instincts stepping in, and we weren't stopping to pause and think, what are the ramifications of this? What's going on? Daniel, on an average year, will serve maybe a month in reserve duty. So they're used to seeing him in uniform every so often and going out and coming back a few weeks later, a month later. So we kind of reacted in that way that this was going to be another, really short stint in the army. We've been here for a long time, for 16 years now. We've seen a few, tensions arising,
yeah.
some not major wars, but, operations going on.
Sure.
And so we've experienced that. But this was, on the one hand, we felt like it was going to be that. It was going to be very short-lived. On the other hand, as the news started to come out and things started to develop, we heard about the Nova and we heard about the police station in Sderot, and then we started calling everyone. I think my kids reacted in a way that was very mature and wonderful and very representative of Israeli society, in that they were like, okay, we'll just get on with it. We'll just deal with it. This is what's going on right now. We need to continue, and we need to find ways to support each other and support the rest of the family. Actually, on my wall there, you can see this image of us doing a human pyramid. Can you see in the collage over there? Me in the middle and my kids, one on each side of me, and then the twins on the top. So that was like an iconic picture for us of, okay, this is how we're holding each other up during this time. And then we photoshopped Daniel in at one point because he wasn't home for a while. But
that's the point. You did it. The pyramid can be built without him, I guess.
It can't, though. It can be half constructed, but it's still missing with 6 people. So it forms a perfect pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's missing that, that 6th piece. But what happened during that time was, I think, again, indicative of Israeli society. Our community just rallied. Everyone was there for each other in the most remarkable ways. There was somehow, through the community center, they started all these networks of volunteers. And every synagogue had their representative who was responsible for coordinating volunteer efforts. And somehow it just seemed that every single need of every single family was taken care of. Where I was most concerned, ironically, was for the people who didn't have families serving in the army, but maybe were single mothers, or, having all these challenges that pre-existed October 7th.
And suddenly they were overlooked by a bigger crisis.
Exactly. So then once we acknowledged that, there were also operations to try and support those kind of families and those individuals. I don't know how unique my community is in that. I've heard a lot of wonderful things going on all around the country. But because of my work, I became very focused on what's going on in the Jewish communities around the world. Like, so many people were focused on what was going on in Israel. There was so much support rolling in from the communities and from everyone. I always remember every time there's a crisis, the first people that pick up the phone to call me are my non-Jewish friends. Whether it's my Christian Arab friend from the north of Israel, who is a very high commander in the police force and dealing with so many things himself, calling me to make sure that we're okay. Whether it's a friend of mine who's from a government agency in Sweden, who's responsible for ethnic and religious minorities in Sweden, and not a Jewish person, but I've worked with him before extensively, calling me to say, I know something's going on in Israel. And also whenever anything's going on in the Jewish world, they are the first people to call and say, we're with you. We feel this with you. And it's the most remarkable, unbelievable thing.
You are very positive. I'm less so. So I will ask you questions that come from my slightly darker heart. First of all, were you surprised by how quickly things soured for people in the diaspora? The protests, the violence, the calamity that was so anti-Israel so soon. Did that surprise you? Because you really are used to seeing the best of the communities and their allies. And this, I don't know if it took you by surprise or not. And then the second thing that I want to ask before I forget is, how did you feel fear when Daniel was away? And if you did feel fear, how did you manage feeling it while also keeping the wheels on the bus personally and professionally?
Right. So I guess in answer to your first question, and this is something that loads of people have been saying, is the feeling of being shocked but not surprised. The anti-Semitism that's been bubbling under the surface. I think one of the most iconic moments for me, which was shocking, was the massive protest that took place in London with over 300,000 people marching in protest against Israel. This happened, I believe, on October 9th.
Israel had not done any kind of retaliatory move
Israel
whatsoever.
had not entered Gaza. This was literally just after the massacre that occurred on October 7th. And it came out later on that there had been requests sent to local authorities of allowing them to have some kind of rally and protest. And this was before anything even happened. How did they know this was going to happen to write in for permission to hold some kind of rally? What scared me about this, and I don't know if it's fear, but what really concerned me about this is the sheer numbers. You have 300,000 people 2 days after October 7th walking through the streets of London protesting Israel. The Jewish community of the UK is less than 250,000 people. So the numbers that were out there represented more than the entire UK Jewish community.
That's staggering.
And it really was staggering. And then I want to think even before then, there was these beautiful moments where you saw all these major buildings around the world that were lit up in blue and white in solidarity with Israel, like the Sydney Opera House and the Arc de Triomphe and all of these really iconic places around the world that they lit up in blue and white in support of Israel. Like they had lit up in blue and yellow in solidarity with Ukraine. I made this collage of all these amazing iconic sites that were lit up in blue and white. And then everything switched. And of course, as soon as the IDF entered Gaza, then it was as if there was a justification for all these anti-Israel protests and the violence that we saw in the streets. I remember having a conversation with my brother, who's a very senior person in the UK Jewish community, and him saying how people are not necessarily safer in Israel. Jews are not necessarily safer in Israel than they are anywhere else in the world, but they're not necessarily safe in the communities that they live in. What he said was that a Jew hasn't been killed in the UK for over 100 years. And in Israel, unfortunately, that's quite a common occurrence. And then Manchester happened, and Yom Kippur this year, the brutal attack that took place and took the lives of 2 Jewish worshippers in a synagogue just in 2025. So it's very concerning because we've seen this massive uptick in anti-Semitism. But I'm like digressing from your original question. Like, how did we respond to what happened in Jewish communities around the world? And I think it relates to the second part of your question about fear. We have these instincts, the fight, flight, freeze. I don't tend to freeze. I don't tend to have that fear and the paralysis because, again, it relates back to what Rav Doron said about worrying. Fear stops you from acting. It holds you back. And what are you fearing? You don't even know what you're fearing. You don't know what you're afraid of. But the minute you're in some kind of activity and you're always on the go and you're doing things, it suppresses that fear and it gives you purpose and meaning. And for me, that was Jewish communities. I saw what was going on around the world. I communicated with the amazing partners that we have in every Jewish community. And it's important for us to understand from their perspective what their needs are, and then for us to understand how we can assist them and how we can be just full of that mutual support that is so characteristic of the Jewish people. All of Israel is responsible for one another. And we always have to keep that in mind.
I think, as a mental professional, the concept has always been that once there's a trauma, you should slow down You should take stock. You should recuperate. I think I have learned a lot being here and seeing how therapeutic it is to keep going and to continue to work and how it can rebuild purpose and preoccupy in all the right ways.
I think that it has to be both because, and this is so classic of the Jewish Agency, we have so many programs that we operate on a day-to-day basis that continue. Even if there's an emergency situation, you can't just, drop everything and turn to the emergency. And that's what resilience is. You're able to pivot in a way that you can respond to whatever crisis is going on, but at the same time, continue the regular work that you're doing. And I think that from the emergency side and the resilience side, that's exactly how we need to operate all the time. Is yes, we need to kind of take stock of what's going on, but we can't just stop and take stock. We need to continue moving and all of the activity and everything that's going on, understanding the needs and triaging the situation, but not forgetting our regular responsibilities. I think during COVID, that was something that happened a lot. And we saw it as something that we're trying to work on a lot with communities is the burnout of the leadership. Anyone that holds a significant role in an organization, in a community, whenever there's an emergency, whenever there's a crisis, drops all of their personal needs and just takes care of everyone else and everything else. And that's not sustainable. You need to find the ways to recharge yourself, the oxygen mask, putting it on yourself before you can take care of everyone else. And we forget that as community leaders all the time. Think everything is crisis and everything's going to be chaos if we're not there all the time. We really, really need to work on that with our community leaders and say, you guys are amazing. You guys are powerful. We will support you however you need. But you're the ones that are taking charge here. But we have your back, that kind of dance between the two.
So there's something that I wanted to tell you about. I don't know if you remember, last February, I did a trip in Europe. I was in Paris, Brussels, Amsterdam, Rome, and Warsaw. 12 days, 15 interviews, keeping Shabbat. That's why I'm so tired still right now. But you tried to connect me, and I had already been connected, fortunately, with David Fiorentini, who's from quite Italy. An amazing leader in the Jewish community there, the student community, and now he's graduated. And I talked to him, and I remember him saying that it's attention, that Aliyah is attention, right? And I felt that in every community. Like Israel beckons, but you also want to maintain some indigeneity of your own local flavor, your own Judaism. One of the Roman Jewish leaders said the diaspora is an opportunity, right? And what he said to frame this point was Israel is our life insurance. And I'm sure that you feel that to some extent. How does this sit with you? I mean, you're very enthusiastic about the fact that you meet Aliyah 16 years ago. Nowhere in this story of strife have I heard that you said to your husband and kids, let's use our passports and go back to England. How do you sit with the reality that we need a diaspora and that Israel also is this wonderful place that awaits, anybody who wants to be part of a good story?
That's such a good question. Well, I think because I straddle both worlds, I really see the value in both of them. And I see how strong and vibrant and beautiful and rich Jewish life can be around the world. And for those that want to continue their lives in those communities, we're not going to ignore them. We're not going to say, guys, okay, that's what you've chosen. We're not with. Of course we're with you. We want to make sure that every single Jew, no matter what their perspectives are, what their religious levels are, what their engagement is, we want to be able to show them that they're part of something and this beautiful family. And those that want to make Aliyah, of course, support them in that process. And there needs to be a lot more done in the arena of Aliyah to help not just make Aliyah, not just move to Israel, but have a successful life in Israel and build that success. But I mean, I operate in the communities and I want to see how these incredible people and these amazing historical institutions and these phenomenal organizations can thrive and can continue to give. And what makes me even more excited is when they're integrated and interacting with local populations. It's not like Jews in silos. And of course, there are some communities, some regions around the world where it's much more challenging for the Jewish community to be very integrated with everything else that's going on in society. But where there is that opportunity, we've seen it done in the most remarkable ways. There are places like Italy, you gave the example. It's a beautiful example of how there's so much collaboration with different faith groups. And there's a lot of collaboration with local authorities and emergency services and the integration. There's always more that can be done everywhere. But these are the things that we need to grasp onto. We need to understand that what our desires are, our personal interests are, and not necessarily the interests of others. Whatever we can do to fulfill those dreams and desires of others and encourage them to be part of the Jewish people and contribute to society. In Israel and around the world, by the way, there's a lot of challenges going on in Israeli society about trying to make sure that the population are contributing citizens. And it's not necessarily one size fits all. We need to find that way, that method to make people feel productive and active and involved. And the more you give and the more you're part of something, the more you feel so connected to it and you care about it. We hurt when our brothers and sisters around the world hurt. What happened in Bondi, it permeated our very beings. It was felt by all of us. Even if one didn't know someone that was involved or someone that was there on the day, although I feel like everyone knew someone, but it feels so part of us. And that October 7th, every Jew around the world has some connection to Israel, whether it's positive or a negative connection, or it's family, or it's friends, or it's someone that you once met somewhere along your life. Everyone had that connection. And so everyone reacted. We need to harness and channel those reactions to support one another and not be antagonistic against each other. At the end of the day, we have family members ourselves who are less passionate about Israel, let's say. And
yes,
and
a lot of us are from mixed families.
Very, very negative towards what's going on.
Yeah, right.
But at the end of it, these are good people and they're coming from a place of real love and care. And when we acknowledge that in the person that we're talking to and we understand it's not because they're a bad person and it's not because they think we're bad people, it's because we love each other so much and we love Israel and our people that we want the best for it. What the best means to me and what the best means to someone else could be completely opposite.
I will tell you that I went to these places in Europe really thinking that what I was going to hear is that we're all just kind of waiting to leave, right? When I went to Israel in February of 2024, however, 4 or 5 months after the war, nobody said to me, "Why are you going?" When I went to Paris in 2025, people at my shul and my synagogue said to me, "Why are you going there? It's so dangerous," right? It was just a surreal shift. And I really went into all the interviews thinking that these people are going to tell me that there's no future here. I didn't hear that. And the thing that really struck me was when David, the man we're referring to, he's from Siena. And there's a specific trope, the way that you read the Torah, that's Sienese. And he is one of 3 or 4 living people who know how to do that. And I thought, he has to stick around. I felt it culturally. Like maybe there's something that needs to be left intact. I mean, there are many political reasons for this, and everything you've just said really resonates. But also culturally, I was like, we can't lose all this. The davening in Rome is different than it is elsewhere.
So I have to say that is one of the absolute highlights of my career, is visiting Jewish communities and understanding how they operate and where their customs are and where their culture is integrated between the original Jewish textual learnings and how it's been adopted by these communities. And as someone, actually, I didn't talk about my own family history, which is quite international. My grandparents are from India. They were part of the Baghdadi Jewish community from Mumbai, then Bombay. So I grew up with this very mixed culture of the very British Jews and then the Sephardic Indian Jews. And so exploring these communities and just, you gain from every experience. What's remarkable, though, something can be so different to everything that you've grown up with and everything that you've experienced, but you feel connected automatically. You feel at home. I remember when I was in university in Manchester, and I had a lot of non-Jewish friends. And one of the things that they would say to me is how jealous they were in a way that we could come. I grew up in London. I could come to Manchester, to a place where, in theory, I shouldn't know anyone. I should be completely anonymous. But I had a community to support me of Jews that maybe I'd never met in my life before, but I knew that they were there for me and they were there for me. And my non-Jewish friends in university did not have that. They were establishing themselves completely from scratch and felt very anonymous and very alone.
I'm going to pivot for a second and say that I think you're very cool. And one of the things that is cool about you is that you kind of run a bar You're going to have to explain what this is. I've never had an opportunity to attend. I want you to talk about what this is, and then I want to ask you a little bit about your cultural observations of Israel, things you think we should know in the diaspora about music and film, whatever you're seeing, I would love for you to share with us. And again, you somehow run a pub. So let's start there and we'll fan that out.
Well, so we talk about resilience, right? And when you work in emergencies and crisis, one of the best ways to get over that at the end of the day is have a good drink with a good group of friends. The pub is actually a model of community building and resilience. It was started by a group of people in our neighborhood.
In your neighborhood, okay.
A group of locals who really enjoyed spending time together as a community and suddenly didn't have that opportunity. There were two guys that really founded it, Asaf, who's also British, and Shlomi, who actually also works at the Jewish agency. So we're keeping it in the family.
It's a really family affair.
And they rallied us around. They said, we have this idea. We want to establish a community pub. It's not a new concept in Israel and not in Jerusalem. There are many community pubs. The model is it's all volunteer run and it's all by the community for the community. So we have now about 30 to 40 people as part of the cooperative of the pub that we all are kind of shared members of this initiative. We all do shifts. Some of us are more tuned to bartending. It's one of my passions. And some are more involved in, renovations, marketing and other things for the pub. Everyone has their niche. When we talk about community, and especially in places like Almon HaNetziv, which is the neighborhood I live in Jerusalem, it is such a diverse mix of people from all ages, all backgrounds, nationalities. We have Arab villages around our neighborhood where in times of calm, we all share the same, public services. We're all at the same bus stops and the same shopping centers, everything, community services, we're all together. One of the things that I loved about the concept of the pub, also being British and growing up with that kind of culture, was that it was a place for everyone. We decided we're going to have it closed on Shabbat so it can accommodate the religious audiences, but also have an environment where it's very, very inclusive. Everything, we don't serve food, so it kind of makes it easier in terms of kashrut, but all the drinks and all the alcoholic beverages are kosher. Fridays, we have family activities. So it even involves the younger children. There's a climbing wall, which was sponsored by the Jerusalem Foundation.
Oh, wow.
Which is right next to the pub. So we open all of these elements together and we really bring in so many different factions of the community. Now, where it came to community building, so the pub itself is very cool. It's a renovated bus. We bought a bus and we lifted it up onto this huge balcony next to the community center. And we positioned it there and renovated the whole thing. It's stationary at this point, obviously. But the bar itself is inside the bus in this small space, but we have the huge balcony outside where we can host massive events.
Yeah.
So during COVID, it meant we can gather because it's outdoors. We had weddings there. We had bar and bat mitzvahs, a lot of really big events that took place there because there were no enclosed spaces.
Wow.
And also because it's a community initiative, so it welcomes everyone without the massive expense of an event. So what's also wonderful is that we have a lot of local talent who come and perform at the bar, whether it's stand-up comedy or spoken word, whether they're musicians, anyone giving lectures. We want to bring this rich diversity of talent from our neighborhood to also showcase at this community space. Then the pub became a much bigger thing because word got out that there was this fabulous community pub, and we now host delegations from around the world that want to see something a bit different and off the beaten track in Israel. We've hosted karaoke nights and cocktail workshops for visiting delegations from all around the world. It's a beautiful, remarkable initiative. Amazing when you can get together a group of people who are all passionate, who all want to volunteer, who all have their unique strengths that they can contribute. It's marvelous. It's really wonderful.
So tell me what's playing. What's on the playlist these past few years?
Wow. So actually we have this wait list of amateur bands and performers that want to come and perform at Balmon. It's called Balmon because it's a bar in Armon HaNetziv. And people are just signing up to come and perform at the bar. Obviously, we can't take everyone and we need to vet them. But we've had some remarkable performers. And we've also had famous bands performing from Chemi Rudner, who was quite well known, especially in the sort of 70s, 80s, maybe 80s, 90s, actually. We had Shoten Nevuah, who were well known. We had Eran Sankhani, who's actually a very dear friend. He and his brothers, Achim Sankhani, were on Kochav Nolad, which is like The Voice. What's the equivalent? American Idol?
American Idol, yeah.
They were on the list there. We've had some really, really incredible performers come. And then on a regular day, when we don't have a big band or a performance coming, we have our playlists. And what's nice is that there are members of the cooperative whoever's on shift is responsible for the playlist. We have Russian speakers who have their style of music. We have Ethiopians who have their style of music. We have Spanish speakers. We have a bit of everything. And that's also so incredible because it infuses, their cultures. We talk about Jewish diaspora, and we talk about the rich culture of what they have around the world. And everyone just brings of themselves and shares it with everyone else.
Do you remember how long it took after October 7th specifically to start to play upbeat music and get people laughing and drinking and
everyone
dancing?
was different. And everyone was justified in however their response was. For us, we started immediately. Okay, we can actually open the pub, but we opened our own private pub in our home and invited loads of people to come because we were close to a shelter and we could have everyone together in that way. My response is to continue whenever we go through a challenge. Keep enjoying wherever we can, never forgetting. Never forgetting. It's not like you have to be sad or happy. These two truths exist together. These realities can live in parallel. And there were also people who could not, for years, until the last hostage was returned, who could not even bring themselves to smile properly and to say good morning to people. Like, how do we say good morning when there's so much suffering? I personally was not so much in that direction. I needed to be upbeat. I needed to continue to be who I was. I couldn't lose myself because then I wouldn't be able to continue being active in the way that I needed to be. And it gave me the strength to be there for my children, especially while Daniel is in reserves. Gave me the strength to be there for my community, for all the various groups that I'm part of, Miluim wives, wives of reservists, various community groups in our neighborhood that are specifically for women, specifically for Anglos, those who have kids of similar age groups. There's no end to the number of groups that you can be involved in.
Has WhatsApp taken over your life?
Oh, it did a long time
ago? Okay, that's not a change.
A long time ago. The thing is with WhatsApp is it's just like a reflection of my real life, as what's happening day to day. I'm not stuck on social media. I'm actually very bad at using social media just because I don't have time for it.
But these groups are a reflection of people that you actually spend time with and who are valuable to you.
Every single one of my friends on Facebook is someone that I've met personally and had a conversation with personally. I have about 4,000 or 5,000 at this point, 4,000.
That's wild.
Which is really amazing. And I'm talking about kids that I was their counselor on camp. Some of them are at that level and some of them are really, really close friends that I see on a day-to-day basis. But every single one of my Facebook friends is someone I know personally, which is really nice.
Let me ask you this. I was planning on saying, when will we know the war is over? But before we started, you said Daniel is back since the war ended. So for you, the war has a ceasefire, hostages are home. What is some guidance or any kind of thought that you would give to a lot of these couples who are now coming back together for a longer stretch after so much stop, start, immense, enormous happenings in their separate parallel lives? Is there any kind of just wisdom or thought that you have about that right now?
I'm so not the person to give wisdom to other people.
Well, then tell us the hardship. I don't know, whatever you've got.
There was a really special event that I helped organize recently for all the wives and girlfriends of the soldiers in my husband's unit. And that's about 600 people. It wasn't obviously 600 people that came to this event, but we had a really nice showing of women from, again, all different backgrounds, age ranges, some who even unfortunately had been divorced since the start of the war. I think the war brought up a lot of tension in every single family. There was no one that could avoid it. I think one of the most important things is to acknowledge that you're not alone and to reach out when you need help and to not feel like, again, goes back to before, your problems are less than anyone else's problems. Everyone needs support in some way. I'm like a very positive, optimistic, upbeat person. I could not handle a life without my social circles around me, without my friends around me, without my community. That is what keeps us going. People are so busy. So people don't necessarily stop to acknowledge that the person in front of me is going through something. We need to have that inner maturity, I guess, to reach out to others and share what's going on with our lives, because we can't just assume that people know. We need to reach out and be active in saying, I need support, I need help. I'm not someone to impart wisdom, but I think that is a huge message, and that people should just feel like everyone around them wants to help. I think about all the funerals that I went to after October 7th. Unfortunately, I lost a lot of friends, people that I knew personally on October 7th, and have subsequently fell in the war over the past 2 years. I made a point of only going to funerals and shivas, memorial services of people that I actually knew, because you can go so crazy with it. And one of the conversations that came up time and time again with these families sitting shiva, the bereaved families, the grieving families, was that they felt so much strength from people just showing up. You don't need to say anything to the person in front of you. Some of us don't have the words, don't know how to express, don't feel like we're in a place to say anything to these people who are going through the most horrific challenges. They've lost the biggest love that they've had. They're grieving. But people just showing up and standing there, their presence being there, that makes such a huge difference. But again, people don't know how to help. People want to help. They don't know how to help unless they're told. So we need to be more assertive with that.
So I would say that you actually do have a lot of wisdom to impart. And I want to thank you for spending this past hour doing that with me. Thank you so much for sitting with me and making the time.
It is always a delight to speak to you. You're amazing. Just
Thank you,
keep
Sam.
doing the incredible work that you're doing and keep meeting phenomenal people, because whenever you're having a conversation with someone, it gives us so much strength. Everyone that listens to you avidly, you're speaking with some really incredible. I feel very humbled right now that I'm speaking to you, but you're speaking with amazing people, and we can all gain wisdom from everyone else. So thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to What Came After wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us online at whatcameafter.com.
Held my chest, light in the dark, embers burning from love. Still don't I'll be by your side, like diamonds at noon. All I ever want is you. Call your name, fill this space. Evergreen is a color that never fades away. So why don't you stay? All I ever want is you. 'Cause all I ever want is you. There's times you stay, times when you like to move. Time for a change, time when